Virgin.
Beauty.
Bitch. Podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
All right. 2025. Will the memory of this year be one you mount on your mantle, or is it heading straight for the recycle bin? 2025 for me, it felt like a nothing burger. Nothing stands out, nothing moved the needle. It felt like a year of building scaffolding, you know? Like I'm grateful I had something worth the effort of building, but it doesn't necessarily make for great entertaining conversation, right? Like nobody wants to hear that I had another revisit from COVID. Who cares? Or I did have a minor car accident, and it gave me a deeper appreciation and empathy for people who live with chronic pain and how that can ruin your entire life. That sucks. So I'm grateful that I had that experience. I'm glad that part of it is over, though.
Mm-hmm.
But we also had, and we always do, we always have amazing conversations with brilliant, beautiful, dynamic, engaging, and transformative guests on topics that are not easy to talk about. I'm always grateful for that. For that alone, 2025. Okay, I'll give you a B plus.
Not quite that A, but not, in the C category. Just we're good, but, could have been better.
Could have been way better. Could have been way better.
Could have been worse, could have been better.
Exactly. Hopefully, the scaffolding you've built now can support something that is forward-facing and permanent. So, grateful for that.
Does that mean we're going for that A plus 2026?
We're going for like A plus plus.
Ooh, A plus plus.
A plus plus, absolutely.
Ooh, pluses on both sides.
Yes. Right? So, but you know what? Be grateful, and I am, for sure.
Well, you did say it was a B, so I think B stands for be grateful.
There you go. There you go. If you really want to stretch it, yes. It would normally start with a G.
That your accident wasn't a major one, and that it was
True.
Temporary suffering and maybe chronic pain that might sneak up, but hopefully not.
Yeah,
Hopefully
for sure.
On the up and up.
For sure.
You never know how fast things are going to pivot. That is both the excitement and wild ride of life, and also a piece of great anxiety.
It is. However, it's what makes this roller coaster worth paying for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whether we like it or not, we've bought the ticket and we're on the ride.
Exactly.
Twist and turn when we least expect it.
Absolutely.
In the loops, upside down. And then a drop.
And a drop. And then another drop. Right? And then you get that face you get when people reach Mark 6 or whatever that speed is, that where your face goes all freaky. Your cheeks.
Why did I do this?
Give me my money back.
Yeah. Can I trade in for a different ride?
Oh man, such is life. A few highlights. Well, I don't know if they're highlights. A few things that went on through the year. Obviously, both Canada and the U.S. Leadership changes. We lost the Pope, gained a Pope in the world. Did you know that there was the world's first humanoid robot games in August of 2025 in Beijing, China?
Wow, I didn't
with
know
over
that.
500 androids in 16 countries participating.
Wow. So is this a race or an obstacle course, or what's the premise of the games?
I think it's obstacle course ish to see how humanoid how human these humanoids are.
Wow.
Right? And how with their dexterity and so on and so forth. I didn't even hear about it. That's just something that came up as I was reviewing the year. And of course, there was that amazing jewel heist at the Louvre, which is like that takes balls.
No kidding. No doubt.
Right? I don't know where you get the I don't know where you get the onions to pull that off. But some people, I guess,
Okay,
desperate
it feels
times,
straight out
right?
of a movie. Like they watch too many of the heist movies, and they're like, "I can do that. I'm gonna do that." And then they did.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And a few people that we lost this year, gone but not forgotten. Do you remember David Lynch?
Yes.
Right, some freaky, weird movies he made, but he passed in January of 2025. And I'm a big music lover. Mm-hmm. So in my music, my love of music is wide, very, very wide. And two individuals passed this year that kind of demonstrates how wide my music stretches. There was Ozzy Osbourne, who's Black Sabbath, like as hard as you can. Like they pretty much invented that hard, blasting, grungy,
Dark, gritty
rock
metal.
and roll. Yeah,
Rock,
right?
yeah, the dark rock.
And on the other side of that was a woman who sang, probably for me, the most profound love song ever written by any human being. She sang the song The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And that was Roberta Flack. She also passed this year. But I can never imagine going to heaven and then finding Ozzy Osbourne talking with Roberta Flack.
Right? They're like, same year. What's good? I would have never met you down on Earth, but here we are. Tell me what's good. How did you land where you landed?
God, I would love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation.
No kidding.
Would that be
When people
amazing?
ask, who would you have to a dinner party, dead or alive? I feel like having those two
Right?
at your party would be
Oh,
something.
man, that would be something else.
Right? Sit
That
them
would be
beside each
so
other
cool.
so they really like can't avoid the conversation.
Right? Amazing.
That's
So
so cool.
that would demonstrated to me the breadth of my musing.
That is a
was these two
very
individuals.
far spectrum there, Christopher.
It
and I
is.
feel like that's just tapping the surface of some of the jams you've opened me up to.
Yeah, I mean, in the middle there's Sly Stone, Sylvester Stone, Sly and the Family Stone. He's probably in the middle there somewhere of those two. So maybe he'd be the mediator.
Right. Somebody's
two
going to
come-
have to. You're
come
going to be busy.
Right? So interesting to look at that and gauge the things in your life that have come through your life that you've loved and the people who have influenced it in ways that when you look back and you see the contrast, it's like, wow, that's pretty amazing that you would love things that far apart equally. Right? That's kind of cool.
Very cool. And I feel like they stir your soul in different ways. So, but that you've got a fondness for them in equal measure, although they give something very unique to what you love.
Absolutely. What do you got on your 2025
Ooh,
keeper or not
yeah,
keeper list?
2025 was a big one. It was a big year. I feel like for me, 2025 was a year of sacred goodbyes and of release and surrender, healing of the past, closure, kind of trusting cycles and completing cycles. My father passed away this year, and that was, it's something that every single one of us has to go through with someone close to us, whether it's a father or a parent or a loved one or somebody who you hold dear or someone that you have a very deep connection to. And there's so much out there, of course, for grieving and the process of grieving. And even with all of the things that exist out there, like grief counseling and therapy, reflection and journaling, nothing, I think, really prepares you for how you're going to experience. And I think that was the greatest piece of advice that I received from the different people who have lost, parents recently or lost them a long time ago, is there's going to be likely many different emotions happening at the same time, and a layered undertaking of the finality of someone's passing. And so I really tried to not run away from any of those feelings. I think it's easy in our world to try to find escapes, to, drown yourself in work, to find any means to not have to feel the way that you're feeling. And I didn't want to live this moment like that. So I took on a lot of very purposeful efforts while he was in his last months to spend time together and ask him questions that I really needed answered. And, I want to kind of preface it by saying that none of the conversations we had were cloaked in malice or in bad faith. It was a unique opportunity to have some atonement and healing on both sides. And so, it's not a novel idea, but what felt right for me in my process was being in Winnipeg with him and writing a letter. And I wrote a letter about all of the things that I had made excuses for. So, my dad suffered with very severe case of bipolar disorder, and that led to many weathered storms, many turbulent eras and chapters and actions. And I think for most of my life, I've pushed those things aside and just showed up as a loving daughter as best as I could to take care of him. So to give myself the permission to stop making excuses because of his mental health and to be honest with myself about the damage that was done from him to me was very challenging. There's a lot of things that you don't want to look at. There's a lot of things I refused to look at for a long time, mostly because I felt like it didn't define me, it didn't own me, it just didn't meet me with where I was at and where I wanted to go. So I thought that I had just released it, but the reality was that I had pushed it down and tucked it under a carpet in a dark cellar, very, very hard to find, and very, very much in a safe hiding place, even from myself. So to open up that cellar door and see all of the monsters that were down there was extremely painful. And there were moments of going through that process that I felt deeply that I would have been better off not looking at it and leaving that door firm shut, and that I was doing just fine without having all these things kind of come up and bubble over. And, there were points during this process with him that I I felt like I regretted opening up that door because it was so painful to look at. And I don't know if anyone is going through a really hard time with a family member or a loved one, a parent. At least for my experience, I kept pushing through. And part of that pushing through was doing that letter for me and just really letting it all out. And I let it all out. I'm talking like 33 pages of letting it all out. So it was like 4 different writing cycles at different places that he had brought me to when I was younger in Winnipeg. And that process, I cannot express how therapeutic it was to not live in any of the excuses anymore, but to be raw and real with myself. And I thought long and hard about if I wanted to read him that letter. And that version of the letter was not something that I thought would serve where we were at, where he was at health-wise. And again, I didn't want things to be done in anger. So I had a different version, a version 2, that was still honest and true to the damage that he caused. And I asked him beforehand if he was ready to read it. It was good times, bad times, traumatic times, and he did. He wanted to hear it. He wanted to know how he had affected me over my life. And he listened to that letter and hung on every single word. He just sat in the pocket of sorrow with me, and of sadness, and of deep, deep hurt, and also in joy, right? In some very special memories that, I think the challenging thing with everyone is that even when people can act horribly, they're not always a horrible person. So it's never a one size fits all kind of feeling, right? There's many heartfelt memories that I have with him when he was at his best that I treasure. And I think that now that he has passed, I treasure them even more. So I'm very grateful that he was willing to hear and wanted to hear those things, and some of his responses to questions that I had for some of the things that he has done to me. There's no words to describe how healing it was to hear his answers, to see his true, genuine remorse on his face. And I think, when people are sometimes, not always, but sometimes when people know that the end is getting close and they see things a little more clearly, I think he was able to feel. He was able to feel for others in a way that was very hard for him for a lot of his life. So, part of the process too was we learned a lot about each other. We learned a lot about where our lives had taken us. I found out that we have the exact same favorite color, which is so funny. Our favorite colors is a deep purple. And at the hospital he was at, there was this like field of flowers that were dark purple. And I don't know, it just felt like the right place at the right time. I think the other thing that made a huge difference was, it was not shying away from the hard conversations. And now for me personally, I understand that some people, you don't get this opportunity. Sometimes you lose a person really quickly and you never get the chance to say what you wanted to say or ask the questions that you wanted to ask. Sometimes the person's health is just not in a good cognitive condition for you to be able to get the answers that you're looking for, or perhaps share something that's been burning on your heart or your soul for a long time. I would say that if you do have the opportunity, especially if it isn't perfect, try to say it if you have the chance, because looking back, I'm so glad for both of our hearts that I walked through the uncomfortability of it, and I walked through the not knowing how he would respond, right? Like that's something that I had to come to terms with before I jumped into any of these conversations, is this could make him very angry, this could make him very sad, and he may want me to leave, he may not want to continue the conversation, I didn't know how things were going to land, but I tried to not let my expectation of the situation define what was his to also decide. And, you know, to my shock and to my sincere gratitude, he was really ready. He was really ready to try to be there for what I needed, and in the end, what he needed too. The chaplain at the long-term care home he was at said to me that in between the visits in the final months that he had, he never in the time that he was there saw my dad as happy and at peace. And he was there for 3 years after, you know, these conversations that we had. So, you know, that just says to me, everybody's circumstance is different, but for my circumstance, it was the best thing that I could have done. And I'm so glad to have walked through the uncomfortability and the not knowing, and to not let my own prescriptions of a situation hold me back or decide what the outcome was going to be, because it takes two, right? It takes two to have that kind of a conversation, and you don't know where it's going to go. And I think the other thing that people don't really, I guess, plan for, but everyone I've talked to who's lost a parent says to me, you know, there's a lot to do in the immediate aftermath, right? There's planning the service, there's tying off loose ends, there's a lot of it. There's a very long to-do list after that moment comes, you know, and you say that final goodbye. And once all of those things are over and the flowers have been in full bloom, like life itself in full bloom, and then die, which I know for some people that makes them sad, but for me, they were such a symbol of the beauty of life, but also the inevitable decay. And even watching them die was therapeutic for me. But once all of that is said and done, there is a very deep, dark void of what once was, the hope of what could be, I feel that I'm in a stage now where the mourning has taken on a deep empty space rather than a how do I show up in the ways that I want to show up for myself and for him during these, you know, precious final days, the immediate aftermath, and then it's like a different season of mourning, and it just feels very still and very quiet, and there's a loneliness, you know, there's a loneliness for, even though our life was very challenged and our relationship was fraught, they're still there, right? They're still somewhere in the universe, and potentially, you know, he still is, if you believe in souls and where souls go next. So, just trying to be kind with myself and patient, because I did have one friend say to me that it feels like the world just keeps on moving, and the world just doesn't keep on moving for you while you're in the heart of mourning. So yeah, I think that patience with myself has given a lot of grace to the experience. Yeah.
We say a lot of time on this in our conversations that growth only comes from those moments of true pain, sorrow, the dark parts of living. That's when you wake up in the morning and the tree, the seed you've planted suddenly appears out of the soil. It's in the night that it pops its little head out of the soil. It seems that's the way of the universe, is that it's in those dark moments that we discover parts of ourselves that grow. And I've known you now for, 9 years or so. And the growth that has transpired over that time, just this one dark event in your life, it's like you've gone from a sapling to a mighty oak with the strength that was necessary to get through this period of trial and tests. And the love that you show and have shown to someone who may not have earned that love in what we would call the way they should, but the love you kept secure for that person, and to open it up like a chest of gold when it was needed the most, and invite him into that. Like, proud is not the word. I'm not even sure what the word is or how I feel about how you walked through that fire with such grace, such love, such purpose, to make sure that this person felt your love, felt your charity, felt your understanding and your forgiveness. Like, we say these words through our lives, but when you see them in action, it is beyond profound. And I saw them in action with you going through this, as you went through that with your father. I saw all those things in action. And I'm in awe. I'm in awe because I'm living with a mother who's in her mid-90s. And yes, there was that communication piece is difficult. And to see you go through that with your father is inspirational. And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot I learned from just you going through that process this year with your father. I am totally in awe.
I can't tell you how much those words mean to me, Christopher. I just really feel them hit my heart, and Christopher has a very deep understanding of some of the bad things that have happened. So to hear you say that, and for you to really understand the depth of the sorrow, and to also know and hear more of your story, it's that's the thing. There's no one way to do this this time, or this thing called life, or these moments that you don't know where they're gonna land. So if I'll say to the listeners that forgiveness did not come easily, and I don't want to say words that I don't mean, and I won't. And so what we did together, my father and I, I said to myself that forgiveness is not an expectation of myself here. It's going to be a long healing journey. But I know that this point in time is a very critical moment. And I think because he was able to walk through it with me and go into that valley of darkness with me, and to not shy away from it, it really helped me to forgive. And I'm grateful that after, I'm saying this in a couple moments right now, but it took years of therapy and months of discussions with him and many tears and many laughs and many heartfelt moments. But it was because of all of those things that before he died, I felt true forgiveness in my heart. And the springboard for me in that forgiveness was appreciating human condition and human limit and the human experience. You know, what is more human than looking at that, right? And it was a time for me to reflect on, on my own human limitations. So in all the ways that I had harbored a lot of anger, that helped open the door to seeing things differently. And it doesn't erase what happened and the decisions he made, but it does provide, it's almost like a cloud or a cushion to not let the jagged edges of it be just jagged, but to have context into what makes people who they are and what conditions them to make them who they are.
I think the most overused word in the lexicon of language is the word love. We toss that word around like it's a coin. But when you see where you were to where you are in the relationship with your father, and what you had to do to get from where you were to where you are, all of that is love. The only way to get from there to there is with love. And yes, we get indifferent to the word. But when you see it in action, there's nothing more powerful. Nothing comes close to love. And I'm not you, but seeing it in you, seeing it act through you, again, it's awe-inspiring. And that's the word that filters up and fills the room and fills the space when you speak of your experience. It's love. And I'm in love with all of that. Thank you for showing me that and sharing that. Thank you.
You're going to make me tear up, Christopher.
That's what we do here. I agree so much that it is a word that gets tossed around so flippantly, and I'm not saying that, people don't deserve to hear it and say it, genuinely and often, but it certainly is a North Star when it feels like a lot of things have been lost. And I noticed that in that dark cellar, and keeping the dark cellar very closed,
I mean, like, I'm a person that, like, was very cut off from crying. Like, could count on two hands how many times I cried within a 5 year span. And finally, the floodgates open. So don't worry, I'm not going to bawl right now. But there, you know, it, I think in shutting myself off from certain feelings, including anger, I shut myself off from a lot of other feelings. And, you know, through all of those moments where it felt like this wasn't worth it or this has unearthed too much, I don't think I can keep walking this path. I'll say for anyone who's considering it or hitting a roadblock in what you want to say to someone you love and you don't know where it's going to land, as long as it's not, in my opinion, done from a place of cruelty, but a place of honesty and wanting to express something that is deeply on your heart and soul, it's so worth any uncomfortability, any potential backlash, any unearthing that feels uncomfortable. Coming out on the other side of it, even though I don't feel like I'm fully through the phases that I need to work through, I am so glad I did. I really genuinely feel that even though you kind of always think I could have done this, I could have done that, could have been more, could have been all these things, I feel like I can look back right now without an immense amount of regret. I can look back and say, we got to heal together. And that's something I'll never be able to get in the same way now. I think that people have to sometimes because you lose someone suddenly and you haven't had the chance to say goodbye. So I think it's possible to go through these processes on your own. But if you have the opportunity, I think it's so worth it. But anyways, everybody's situation is different. So
I think the universe saw in you that you had the capacity, the willingness to walk through with grace, and it gave you the opportunity to exercise that grace. You're worthy of grace.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing I'm also thinking of right now quite a bit is, you know, I feel a lot of people turn inward when they're grieving, and I definitely turned inward, and in many ways I'm still turning inward. And that's something I'm trying to keep a close eye on, because I think if you keep, it's an important moment to kind of cocoon and heal. But I don't want to harden in that cocoon, and I don't want to isolate in this cocoon. And so I think that I'm just trying to stay mindful that functioning is not the same as healing. And feeling safe in your cocoon bubble is not the same as reemerging with what you've learned. So, you know, I've heard of people who have lost loved ones very suddenly, and the healing process takes quite a while. So I think everyone's different with how long that cocoon phase takes, but it's something I'm trying to keep an eye on now to not push other people out. Kind of relearning how to let people in again.
I think you've gone beyond that. I mean, speaking this out into the universe. Like, whoa.
Took a while to get here, that's for sure.
Right? I think the butterfly has emerged.
To do
yes.
so.
The butterfly has emerged from the cocoon. So that is a painting of our year 2025, and it's worth remembering, regardless of what transpired. There are always opportunities to learn, to grow, to love. What more can you ask for? And that's always worth remembering.
I feel that that with a lot of people I've talked to, 2025 had a lot of closures, a lot of sacred goodbyes, a lot of healing from the past. And even though those are painful, deeply painful experiences to feel through loss, there's also a deep wisdom gathered. So, I'm sinking more into what that means, and because sadness doesn't just exist on its own, it exists in this kind of sea of other learnings and different tides that are bringing new things out and in. So even though it was one of the most challenging years of my life, there was a lot that was cycle completed, and I'm not exactly sure what that next phase is going to look like, but it's interesting to feel like when sorrow isn't all sadness.
Yes. But it takes a certain amount of inner wisdom to differentiate between the two. Where does that inner wisdom come from? It usually comes from dark experiences. And we only call them dark because we have this binary thing in our brain that's been implanted in our brain, and everything has to be either dark or light. But dark doesn't necessarily mean something that is not of value. Some dark experiences are the greatest value.
Mm-hmm. I think
And it's
what I love
understanding
about that is, I feel that this grieving process, it's not about going back to who you once were. It's a completely new version of yourself. And the memory of someone that you cared for deeply will shape you in a new way in this new chapter.
Absolutely. So that is the unraveling of our 2025. And I hope that you get an opportunity to reflect and find the gems that were given to you in the year 2025 as well. They may need a little polishing, but they are gems nonetheless. Nonetheless, they are gems. And looking forward to 2026, we'll be digging for more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just to wrap off this, reflective show, if you're listening and you have lost someone, whether recent or not, I don't know, words that helped me was, you're not behind. Grief is not linear. It doesn't, quote unquote, end, and it doesn't need to be resolved. But for me, it's become a companion that I'm learning to walk with. And some days we walk slowly. Some days I have to stop. And other days it helps me lead in a way that I didn't have knowledge of before. And that to me is all that counts. So if you have lost someone and it's on your heart still, I just sending you a lot of grace, because it's quite the interesting road to walk.
So this is not our usual way that we conduct this podcast. However, Heather and I usually investigate and mine into other people's experiences. We are very, very grateful and appreciative to be able to share our experiences as well. And the purpose of this podcast is to share experiences so others can gain strength from them. And I hope that that is the outcome of this conversation today. And we can't thank you enough for listening and sharing this with us.
And certainly if something resonated, or you have a gem of wisdom or something that you've walked through that you think would help other listeners on our show, we would love to hear it. It's a bridge we all cross at some point. So I've gotten so much out of hearing from other people's experience. So we would love to hear from you. If something touched you, something you want to share, or something that came out of this conversation, we would love to hear from you.
All you have to do is go to VIRGIN.BEAUTY.B, and you can leave us a voice message, you can leave us a written message. We, as Heather just said, we are open to engaging and building a community that supports each other. So thank you again for your time and sharing this time with us. And this is
The Virgin.
The Beauty.
And we're entering into the year of the bitch.
That's our next episode. We are going to unravel the year of the BITCH. Join us then.